Thanks for joining me. Chris Kenny here live in Washington, D.C., trying to unpack for you an historic week, a week that has dramatically changed this city. Remember, Washington, D.C. is like the Canberra bubble on steroids. 94% of the people in Washington, D.C. voted Democrat. So this week is a huge cultural shift for them and is still reverberating through the national capital of the United States. It's also a week, of course, that has changed the country. America today is bolder, stronger, freer, and certainly more optimistic than it was just a week ago. And it's also a week that has changed the world. The world is going to be different now directly because of some of the decisions that Donald Trump has already initiated. Nobody can avoid that. But the world will also change because so many people and politicians around the world will follow Donald Trump's lead. And the world's also going to be different because there are so many controversial issues where people have been too timid or too frightened to speak out in the past. And because Donald Trump is tackling some of those issues, people are going to speak about them more freely right around the globe. There's no doubt about that. I want to give you one small example of that because Donald Trump has made so many decisions, hundreds of executive actions and decisions already just in 3 days. And some of these are going to be directly pertinent to Australia. They're going to play directly into the Australian political debate. And one of these relates to the flag. In this case, the American flag, but it's a one flag policy for the United States announced by Donald Trump. Here is how the news has reported it here.
And U.S. embassies abroad can no longer fly pride flags or Black Lives Matter flags. The State Department saying it's time to take pride in the American flag again.
How do you reckon that looks to Peter Dutton back in Australia? How smart does Peter Dutton look now talking about one flag for Australia? This debate plays into the Australian debate directly, just in one small issue. And it demonstrates yet again how Peter Dutton and the coalition just might be running with the zeitgeist for a change. The political winds are blowing in the right direction for Peter Dutton and the coalition as a consequence of not only Donald Trump's election win, but of the way that he's actually started this incredible and historic second term. And there's another issue that I want to pick out that emphasises this point in a much more substantial way. And it relates to climate and energy. And you'll see in a moment that an Australian former Labor politician has played strongly into this debate. But just to set it up, of course, I want to remind you that Donald Trump has changed America's climate and energy policy overnight. He's taking America out of the Paris Agreement again. He's declared a national energy emergency in the US, and he's ramped up energy production. He's ramping up energy production when it comes to gas in particular and nuclear energy. Here's the president.
The inflation crisis was caused by massive overspending and escalating energy prices, and that is why today I will also declare a national energy emergency. We will drill, baby, drill.
Well, in Australia, of course, we also have an energy crisis. We have a self-made energy supply and affordability crisis. The trouble is our government doesn't talk about that. Our government only talks about some so-called climate emergency. Now, having seen what Donald Trump has done, former Labor Defence Minister Joel Fitzgibbon is now saying that Anthony Albanese and Labor must pull back on their climate action. They must recalibrate downwards their climate and energy policies. Have a look.
Obviously, I want Labor to win the next election, and I think that it would be a mistake not to rethink things in the wake of both the election and what's coming after the election. I mean, our election in Australia is going to be coming well before President Trump's had the opportunity to make mistakes. So this momentum is going to be with us for some time to come. And I think it is a time to listen to what people are saying. The Labor Party will always be strong on climate change and will always be stronger than our opponents. But we've seen what overreach does. We've seen the outcome of overreach here in the United States, and we need to be careful not to overreach at home as well.
Well, that's some very sound advice from Joel Fitzgibbon, isn't it? That's very sound and sage advice to Anthony Albanese and Chris Bowen that they should scale back their climate policy ambitions. I don't think they'll listen, though. They should listen to Joel Fitzgibbon, but sadly I think Anthony Albanese listens too much to Chris Bowen. Just have a look at these headlines in Australia today. They're not reading what's happening globally. They're not taking heed of what Donald Trump has done. Instead, they're tipping $2 billion more of your money into green energy funds. So I don't think they're taking the right action there. Albanese would do well to stop listening to Chris Bowen and start listening to Joel Fitzgibbon. I'll have that full Joel Fitzgibbon interview later in the program. Now, I just want to look at another Trump action that is going to reverberate right around the world. You all know about diversity, equity and inclusion policies. They're rampant in governments around the world. They're rampant in bureaucracies, and they're increasingly rampant, of course, in the corporate world. Well, Donald Trump, as of 5 p.m. this evening, as of 8 hours ago, American time, scrapped DEI policies across the federal government. Have a look.
The Trump administration has also ordered all federal employees in diversity, equity, and inclusion roles to be placed on paid leave by the end of the day today. A new memo issued yesterday set the deadline of no later than 5 p.m. Eastern to inform employees they'll be put on paid leave as agencies prepare to close all DEI-related offices and programs and remove all websites and social media accounts. So what's the argument behind the scenes for getting rid of the DEI initiatives? Is it just we're getting rid of woke?
Yeah, I think that frankly is the argument. I mean, I think that you know as well as I do that there are a few things that President Trump said in those rallies more than that he would get rid of the woke ideology and he would get rid of DEI practices and instead put back what they call meritocracy. Getting
rid of woke, bringing back meritocracy. Perish the thought, hey? This is just wonderful news. This is sensible news. This is, as Donald Trump would say, this is a revolution in common sense. And, of course, this is going to resonate in Australia too. This is a clarion call, of course, to Peter Dutton and the coalition. They can jump on board the zeitgeist here again and look at DEI policies, all this sort of rubbish that's going on in the Australian bureaucracy, state and federal, and, of course, especially in the corporate world as well. Now, Donald Trump today has given his first one-on-one interviews since being inaugurated for his second term. As you know, he's hardly stopped talking, speeches, chats with the media in the Oval Office. But he did a one-on-one interview tonight with Sean Hannity from Fox News. And one of the things he talked about is why he is in two minds about whether or not to launch investigations into the activities of his predecessor.
I went through 4 years of hell by this scum that we had to deal with. I went through 4 years of hell. I spent millions of dollars in legal fees, and I won. But I did it the hard way.